Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. So, finally watched Narrative, Gundam Narrative that is. I had been wanting to watch this for a while, just hadn't got the time and hadn't got round to it. Couldn't find it anywhere, and then Gundam Info politely uploads it for a limited period of time, so I thought, go on, I'll watch it. Because I'd seen the 24-minute preview that was uploaded to YouTube originally. I'd covered a little bit about what I thought it could be because I hadn't watched, or rather I had not read Phoenix Hunt, and I'd seen Unicorn. Like, for anybody who doesn't know, up until this point I've watched very little of UC, and basically I'm only just catching up with things. So going into this, watching Unicorn up until the end, you get that feeling of hope and optimism, or at least I did at the end of it, and then we get this continuation where it seems like nothing's quite going how you would expect. The Unicorn and the Banshee have apparently been sealed. The Narrative Gundam is the test bed, apparently, for the Psycho frame, which then gets transplanted into the new Gundam. But when I was looking at people commenting this on the live feed for the YouTube video when the movie was playing, there was a couple of people saying, oh, it's not the test bed, it's nothing related to the new Gundam, it was confirmed by the producer or whatever. I honestly don't know whether that's true or not. Whenever you look at any article, it says it's the test bed. It uses the same frame and similar armor parts. It's what ends up being a prototype for the new Gundam in Char's counterattack. I honestly don't know. But yeah, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where my expectations going into this were pretty low, so I think that might have helped. And also it helped that the 24-minute preview had the narrative Apex in and Sawano's music, which I love. Like, let's just get into this now. You can't beat that introduction for the Narrative Gundam because, again, I said this in the preview video, or the coverage that I did for the preview video, the way that the narrative is introduced with the music and the way that it immediately comes straight out of the gate firing the high mega cannon with the guys in the Shazar team wondering what's going on, and then they realize there's a Gundam right next to them chasing the Phoenix. Oh my god, it's just such a good way to have a really, really showy and impactful thing come on screen. But yeah, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. So basically, for those who don't know, the Phoenix, the third brother of the Unicorn units, goes missing while it's being tested. It destroys the ship that it's currently serving with and then just disappears. And everybody's trying to track it down, primarily because the forces that are hunting it want it to apparently reverse time, or at least unlock the secret of life and death, from what I understand from the story. Basically, it's told that one of the girls, or one of the women in the story, wants to somehow either communicate with the father or save him from death, so they talk a lot about time travel and rewinding time, because apparently that's partly what the Psycho frame can do, based on the ending of Unicorn, that I think was retconned, if I remember rightly, by the producers. I could be wrong on that, but I distinctly remember somebody saying that it was like retconned or something. But yeah, I'm still not too fully sure on what the Psycho frame does after all of this, even though it's explained that the Psycho frame reacts to the pilot's will and can communicate with the dead, essentially. It's got this weird, ghostly, ethereal presence and effect to it, and it's still not totally explained, which is why they end up sealing it at the end of the day. Over the course of the movie, we get to see everything unfold. We get to see Yona, the main character, practically lose everything and feel like a complete washout until he ends up meeting Banagher at the end. And yeah, before we go any further, Banagher's return in this as part of the sleeves with Zimmerman and the silver bullet suppressor, man, that design is just so good. I'm not so sure I like the whole idea of firing the beam magnum and then having to use a completely new arm on the silver bullet suppressor, but I understand the power of the weapon and I know he likes it, so I mean, you can't blame him. That thing, like, it can just graze a suit and it destroys it, so you can understand that. Music, top notch. Storyline, it was easy for me to watch. In fact, I enjoyed it more because of the way that it was set up. You had little bits and pieces sprinkled throughout, you had flashbacks, and then in between that you had a lot of action. And I heavily favour action in films rather than long periods of inaction like we see with Hathaway's Flash that was released, I think, last year. So yeah, compared to Hathaway's Flash, I liked this a lot more just because there was more action for me, and the action itself was really good. We've got the first sequence of the Phoenix being chased by the Shazar team and the Apex, and I really liked that. That was really well done, obviously. We have the narrative B-Pack versus the Neo Zeong, the Sinanju Stein, and the Phoenix. That was really good. I liked the way that took place inside the colony. It got to show you everything from like street level at one point, and the brawl going on between Yona and Zoltan. That was fantastic. I loved that sequence as well. And then, of course, the final fight with the Neo Zeong 2 and the Phoenix. It was over a little bit too quickly, but oof, it was well animated. Speaking of Zoltan, there's the one thing I don't think they really go into in this movie. They introduce Zoltan as, I'm not going to say an edgelord because that's like the easiest thing to single him out as. He comes across as like this mysterious character that comes in singing classical music, if I remember rightly, looking for the Phoenix, because Neo Zeon are after it, and they reference him at certain points as being a failed attempt to either clone, I think it's Shah, or Full Frontal, or at least he's supposed to be like a replacement or something, but that's all you get in terms of information about him. The rest of it is him sort of saying how he's upset that they're trying to replace him and how he's a failure or whatever, and apart from that, that's basically all we get. So he's got nothing to flesh him out. That's the only thing I didn't like, is that Zoltan wasn't fleshed out, because it would have been more interesting to see more of his motivations and, where he was actually coming from on his side, rather than just be like, yeah, he's a one-note villain, there you go. Apart from that, there wasn't too much political stuff in this either. It was literally just like action sequences strung together with little bits in between. I liked the callback to Shah's counterattack from one of the pilots. I think it's one of the Shazar team's pilots who ends up piloting a Jester, like the Spec Ops version. I think it's the commander that ends up having a callback, and you find out that he was actually there at Axis when everybody was trying to push it back in Shah's counterattack. That was a really nice callback. Apart from that, there's not much to say, really. Again, I would have loved to see at least a couple more of the characters fleshed out, just so I could understand a little bit more of their motivation, but apart from that, I really don't think it's a bad film. I like it. I like the way that it ends up resolving all the conflicts, and even though Yona ends up losing basically everything throughout the story, at the end of the day, it still ends on that kind of, at least I feel like it ends on that kind of optimistic note, with Banaja being like, look, you've lost everything, but... And then you see the Phoenix fly past, and Banaj is just like, you could still meet her in future. It's possible. And, yeah, sure enough, Yona seems to long for chasing after Rita, who's been locked inside the Phoenix. So, yeah, it's a cool story. It's a neat way for me to catch up on a little bit of UC lore. And, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So... I don't know how you guys felt about this. Leave your comments down below on what you thought about Narrative. With me being late to the party, obviously, I'm probably going to have like a really naive and optimistic opinion on this, so maybe people can tell me what they thought and what they did and didn't like, and where it didn't work as well. So yeah, anyway, I'll see you in the comments section, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!